What with the world still excitedly exploring Starfield and craving the next Skyrim re-release, I didn't think we would be so excited about a remake of Oblivion. Sorry, remaster. And when it comes to nostalgia, I tend to prefer the originals out of principle and spite. But because Oblivion's leveling system was so broken that I never actually managed to beat it, without using mods, which felt like cheating, this remaster is the perfect opportunity to get stuck into it again. But first, how does it compare visually with the original game? Here is how the jail cell looks, arguably the best looking place from the original game, full of groundbreaking parallax mapped stone walls and physics objects. My heart wants to prefer the original version, but the new one is definitely more detailed and complete with fancier real-time lighting. There's definitely something to be said about the bolder, more patterned look of the original design, and the newer one treads closer to photorealism with all its perfect imperfections. But you can still get the chains to pass through each other. Valve, please fix.
Let me see your face.
Here is the sewer tunnel leading to the outside. It's very easy to forget how primitive and ugly the original place looked in comparison. But it does. Look at it. Look how ugly it is. Having had a taste of the sewers, we now get a face full of loading screen. And visually, the two loading screens couldn't be more different. The originals is just a screenshot with a rubbishy Photoshop paint filter over the top of it. And the new one is a pre-rendered table where someone appears to have painted a pencil drawing. Both have a fun tip to make you regret your character creation decisions, but only the old one has a working, functional loading bar. The new one just has this pointless spinny icon which doesn't help at all, and at one point I was stuck on an infinite loading screen as there was no indication here that there was a problem. But should your game successfully load, you'll find yourself outside. And this is the bit you've all been waiting for. Oblivion's beautiful, scenic, peaceful outdoor regions. Wait, is that? Oblivion's beautiful, scenic outdoor regions. And while the new one admittedly looks quite nice, the old one definitely looks better and prettier and much more artistically aligned with this. Psych. The new one's definitely better, but it does have a different colour palette and feel to it, and the fog makes it harder to read distant scenery when compared with the old one, where the distant scenery is crisp, clear, defined and just waiting to be explored. Psych again. The original looks like a blobby mess. Meanwhile, in the remaster, it looks better. You can even make out this distant ruin here. Not only can you see it, but you might even want to plunger it now that the levelling system's been improved for the remastered edition. It's not a clear-cut victory though. I genuinely believe that the lighting at sunrise and sunset does look better in the original version.
Hello.
You'd think one of these is set later than the other, but it isn't. This is roughly the same time, and the new one just looks too orange and hazy. Reminds me of a storm of some sort. But the old version of Oblivion looks more like a sunset, crisper and more refined. Now I get that a nice sunset can go through a golden hour, but I love the twilight lighting that Oblivions would come with, like how only the highest up clouds would still be lit at the very end of the day and all that. For science, I really did test the remaster to see if there was a similar looking stage, perhaps post-sunset, but no. It just went to night, and maybe not as smoothly as you'd want it to. Yes, later Oblivion Gate. Can't you see I'm busy time-lapsing here? And then I'll do the arena quests, and then the Thieves Guild, and then the Fighters, and then, and only then, will I get around to saving the world. Maybe. Back to the skies though, and if I show a sunrise time-lapse, you'll see the nice new cloud-generating effects, which certainly add something to the remaster that the original version was lacking. These new volumetric clouds are pretty much the same in all the games they feature in, where they're not quite perfect, but they're still so much better than all the alternative methods of drawing clouds that they'll be used until we discover something better, like what we get in Flight Simulator, which looks awesome. The big problem I see with these skies is that the moon will show through leaves even when the sky is completely cloudy or stormy, which is wrong. Can it be fixed? Don't know. On a clear night, I do like that you can see the Aurora Borealis, but it's only visible at certain times of the year, at certain times of the day, in this part of the country localized entirely over the Skyrim region of the map, which I think is a lovely touch, which wasn't needed and certainly wasn't in the original version of Oblivion.
Hello Philip, how are you?
I'm okay, thanks. Just need to dry my hair.
Oh yes.
You can put some trousers on as well.
Back in the day when I was a little bit younger, I was very excited about Oblivion's release, especially for how the water would look in this game, what with Morrowind having the best water splashes the world had ever seen. I was a bit concerned when we got this screenshot of a dock with literally no water showing. They even have a Khajiit covering it up. What were they hiding? What weren't they telling us? And then, just before release, we got this! Ugh! Why were the graphics getting worse? I go with my heart here when I say that the water in Oblivion wasn't as good as that of Morrowind's. I'm going by ripple quality here because the Morrowind ones were awesome. But Oblivion did have some quite advanced reflections, especially for an open world game. It reflected a low quality version of the world itself, minus the trees, and rendered to a lower resolution than whatever your game was currently running at. So how do the reflections in the remaster compare? If you ask me, the ripples are too fast, and they have some blatantly drawn on bubbly patterns around your character. What is this? Half-Life 2? Fortunately, when it rains it does look very pretty, as you can see in this example here, which I got from later on in the video. As for the reflections, they're kind of better, but with more problems as well. It's kind of the worst of all worlds, because you get the screen space reflections when stuff that it's reflecting is visible on screen, which is then swapped out for a ray-traced, well, lumen reflection, which itself is quite intensive and sophisticated, but it lacks the fog. So the transition between the lumen and the screen space reflections is quite hideous and very distracting. And worse still, any trees or stuff in the foreground will still reflect themselves in distant patches of water. Oh no! So yeah, there's room for improvement here. I tried disabling screen space reflections, and here is how it looks with just lumen reflections. Here's lumen with screen space again. And while it pains me to say it, the screen space reflections do help by reflecting the fog and more of the trees and smaller details. But on the downside, it's screen space reflections. It looks like this. So why don't we just disable everything? There you go. That looks terrible as well, doesn't it? Pick your poison. I'm afraid, unless you can tolerate this, that screen space reflections are here to stay, at least until we can figure out a better way of doing reflections in games. Oh, if only there was another way. On the whole, the water has got a lot more advanced, probably slows down your PC a lot more, but it somehow manages to suffer from even more limitations than the older, more primitive method did. What a shame. But underneath the water is definitely much better now, because originally it was utter rubbish. Meanwhile, in the remaster, you have fishes swimming about, and your movement, although less responsive, feels a lot more natural and easier to control in a way. Come, watch Odgrub hunt for fish. Tell you what though, the third-person perspective in the original Oblivion game was unusable. I know this is meant to be a graphics comparison, but I can't actually use third-person in these comparisons because it's so horrible to use. Check out this nonsense. So this is another area where the remaster exceeds expectations by actually being rather good. Now onto the foliage. This was, believe it or not, a huge strength of Oblivion's. They said they specialised on creating dense, lush, beautiful forests. They posted a making of video with a guy who seemed very passionate about mud and piss and shit all over the place. And indeed, the world of Oblivion's was very bushy and branchy compared with the games that came before. And even after. Skyrim didn't have such dense foliage, but all this bush came with one significant downside. If I stand here, between these lovely looking trees here, and look straight up, look what happens when I turn around. Ugh! They all follow me! This is an early version of Speed Tree, a very controversial feature when the game came out, back in an era when people had nothing better to do than to complain about a graphics feature that on the whole was a major net positive, but that came with a few minor compromises that they really moaned about. Totally not like how upscaling is today or anything. Anyway, here's the trees in the remaster, displaying improved visuals and stuff. I also like how leaves occasionally flutter to the floor and remain there. Indeed, I felt like the spirit of the guy from the making of Oblivion had come inside me as I followed in his footsteps, smearing my face into every bush and twig and cranny that I could find, to marvel at the sheer amount of intricate detail that had gone into every surface in this game. I even spotted some fireflies. But what about these willow trees? In the original game they looked utterly ridiculous, with the long strands spinning about all over the place, and meanwhile in the remaster they now act like willow trees, by still looking utterly ridiculous. We've been spoiled for beautiful open world games recently, with the likes of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, that new Gollum game, and now this one, really pushing the envelope on the visual quality that we can expect from video games moving forward. The future is now.